I came here with my biggest enemy. I'm leaving with my best friend. Took his wife and went. And of course, everyone just cheered.
What are some of the most common communication mistakes that all of us can make in relationships, whether it's our intimate partners, our friends, our coworkers, our teammates? And what's the first step in starting to transform that?
The basic mistake that most people make in a relationship is to assume that their partner sees the world the way they do, and then to behave as if that's true, and then to be shocked and judgmental when it turns out not to be true. But that's reality, that nobody sees the world the way you do. Everybody sees the world differently, and that's what's normal. What's abnormal is to assume that that's not normal. So what that means is that in order to not have a relational problem or to resolve a relational problem, you have to learn something that we think is relatively new in the human scene, which is listening. That in order to listen, when you listen, you get to know that you are living with somebody different from your fantasy about who they are. So to listen is to discover the otherness of your partner. And then in order to make that work, you have to not only discover it. I sort of giggle because many times in the process it's like, well, I got it clear who you are, but you suck. You're worse than what I thought you were before I got to know you. So you have to discover and then accept that this is the person you're with, and they live in that world, and your job is to share your worlds without judgment, and then and stay in that, so that becomes very exciting and creative if judgment is removed. But if you judge each other's world, then that's a pathology, because there's nothing you can do about your world except share it and maybe grow. You bring the two worlds together to grow into something new. But I would think that's the biggest problem. We call it the objection to difference. In fact, one day I remember it sort of consolidating in my mind, what is the couple's problem? And because, there are lots of symptoms, but then there's one thing that produces all those symptoms, and which is the rejection of the difference that your partner is. I think that's the major human problem, and especially a couple's problem.
And Marie, your question is so good. Harville makes a point that I think is the answer to your question also. So we grow up, and the value system of the culture is to be the best. What people don't know is that learning to be the best is called monologue. And that's how people talk. And there is a place for being accurate and precise. If you want to have good relationships, there's another way to talk, and it's called dialogue.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before when I had you guys on the show, because dialogue has changed my life. It's changed my relationship. And I just want to say for everyone, they've got a new book out, and I don't know if we've entered this, but How to Talk with Anyone About Anything. I've read it cover to cover. It is excellent. So we're going to be diving in this conversation between intimate relationship, but also friendships and team, family members, anyone that you have conversations and you want to be in relationship with. So what I loved, what I heard both of you say, and I wrote this down in the book, it's that difference is a key feature of nature. And that notion that, oh my gosh, I remember when I was in the first workshop with you guys, and it was like, they are different. And we're going to get there a little bit later. I want to talk about the accepting and the appreciating and the advocating. We'll go there. But difference is a key feature of nature. And it was a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah. Right. And I said that. In the workshops, I say, hey, everybody, human beings are part of nature. And guess what? Nature is dyadic. Dark, light, hot, cold, wet, dry, sweet, sour. So your partner's different than you. And the goal of marriage is to learn to accept difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I got curious about that, and I kind of do strange research on Google. They have never found a particle, even of the smallest particle after you break down all the other particles, in which one particle was identical to another particle. Even at the subatomic level, subatomic level, difference is the difference between the particles that determine what the particle becomes and what it does.
Wow.
So I thought, well, what about universes and galaxies? So far, nobody's been able to say there's a single identical galaxy, all galaxies. So from the galactic level down to the quantum level, difference defines nature. And so then any objection to a rejection of difference, I'd hate to use this word, but it's kind of pathological.
It is. Well, it's silly. Yeah. It's like you're fighting against reality.
But
you don't have to agree with difference.
Yes.
It's about learning to harmonize. And people, what political party are you voting for? Well, that's not what I'm voting for.
And I made the note too in the book. It's like we struggle in our relationship because of how we talk and not what we talk about. And I think that's so insightful because the tools that you give in this book about how to talk with anyone about anything speak to just that. So this is a question that I have that actually arose from our last conversation when we had you on the show. And I want to talk about the advice that you have for those of us who struggle with how to balance our own individual needs with the needs of people that we're in relationship with. So it could be our significant other, but it could be our friends, it could be our coworkers. So let me read you what somebody wrote to me about this conversation. What happens when you don't agree with what your partner wants from you? In your example, you think you're spending enough time together, but they may want to have a lot more time with you. How do you manage when you have a different viewpoint and your partner expects you to change or do something different to make him or her feel better, but you don't want to? What would be your advice?
Well, you just keep trying to come up with a plan where both of you are happy. And Harville suggested I tell the story. There was an opportunity for us to have a vacation. And I was multitasking, working in two different worlds, one with women and one with women and men. And I was tired, and he had 2 kids before we married. I had 2. And we had 2 together who we love. But I was tired.
Yeah.
On vacation. I just want to. And Harville said, no. For a vacation, I want to travel to another part of the world. I love nature. I want to be someplace different. And I said, Harville, can't we just sit on the sofa and relax and have movies and
look at travelogues,
watch, and just rest and take care of our bodies, exercise. And he said, no, I don't think that's right. And then he woke up. He said, Helen, let's get a motorhome. And so we got a motorhome, and we had more fun in this motorhome where Harville we went to in Mexico. Well, once we got on the road, I just went and watched TV shows and on our vacation.
So what we discovered is the thing we just talked about is difference.
Yeah.
I'm a wanderer. Helen is a nester. She wants to stay home, like a hen, take care of the eggs. And I want to go out and look around. So we came to this conclusion that if we had a motorhome, I can wander and drive, and she can go in the back and look at travelogues. And then at night, we can talk about what I saw in front of me and what she saw on the video so that we would then share. And we found that so successful. I think we did that about 22 times.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what I'm hearing there was an interest to keep exploring the differences and to also keep being creative about possibility where you felt like you could get your desires for what an ideal vacation for you looked like as you. Josh and I, vacation is interesting because I know this question. A lot of people have this, my partner wants X, Y, or Z, but I really want something different, A, B, or C. Josh and I noticed that on our vacations too, where he loves to not have plans and discover things. And, I can be a little bit of a control freak in a good way. And I have I know the #1 croissant place in Paris and we must find, and so we've had battles, and the way that we've settled it is some days are absolutely free flowing. There is no agenda. I'm like, I am at your service wherever we want to wander and discover. And then other days I get to then check things off my list of the best of X city. We're going to go visit that. So thank you for sharing that story.
Well, and the beauty of that is that you can have two outcomes.
Yes.
And one is if you hold the difference in tension, it produces a third option that could not come out of one or the other person.
Yes.
Or you can take turns and say, okay, I want to go have a structured day. I want to have a free day.
Yep.
But if you collaborate and using dialogue to really listen to each other each way, then you get all kinds of options.
Yes.
And you don't have to polarize. You then have to just invent.
Yes.
And when couples discover that, they're at another level of consciousness, because most of us live, it's me, not you.
Yep.
Or it's me or you, but it could be us. And that's the kind of consciousness that ultimately produces the best relationship possible when it's us.
When it's us.
Not me or you.
I want to underscore also what you said, which was so key for me when I read it in this book, was we are so trained, especially in our culture. I can only speak to here in the United States because this is where I was brought up. We are so trained to win. We are so trained to, and especially I'll speak for myself as a woman, there's also some interesting kind of subterranean messaging around surrendering, and that makes me weak. So if I submit, and I'm using bunny ears here for my listeners, I'm being a little facetious, to Josh's point of view that I'm somehow not a powerful or strong woman. So there's a lot of layers to this, but I love bringing it back to dialogue and this interest in us.
We are born in relationship. We're wounded in relationship. And we can only heal in relationship. So when there is difference, continue, both of you, to look for a compromise, or one day you do this, next day you do this, or two are arguing about where to go for on vacation when one selects the next year. Just make sure both of you are happy and connected.
Let's look at another situation, which happens for, I think, most of us. Let's say you've had a major blow up with someone in your life. Again, it could be your intimate partner, or it could be a friend, or it could be a boss or a coworker. And there was either a big disagreement or there was some type of breach of trust. What are some strategies that we can use to start to rebuild that connection after something big and hurtful goes down and we just don't feel equipped to re-enter that?
Let's assume that the blow up was somebody was really mad at you because you did whatever they said you did. And I think it's important, just as a little sidebar, that one thing we've learned over the years, we used to think there was a cause and effect relationship between, you're upset and I did something. And what we now know is that I can never be the cause of your upsetness, but I can be the occasion. And I'm the occasion because you have a background, a childhood. I did something that triggered a memory in you, and you not knowing it, and we don't do it intentionally, not knowing it, that memory sort of moved from the past into the present. And you thought it was me doing that. You don't know you had a choice, or you don't know that you had a reaction to what I did. So hardly anybody knows that. So this is why the person who feels who was the one who did the wrong and is therefore accused or in some sense judged by that has to do something really courageous, which is, I'm aware, could we have a talk? Would you be willing for us to have a talk? Because I'm aware that I've really upset you. And you have to go ahead and say, I'm aware that I've really upset you, and not say, I'm aware that you decided to interpret my behavior as directed at you, because that's anybody upset cannot take reality. You have to say, I'm aware that I upset you. And I really, I'm sorry about that. I apologize for it. But mainly I want to know what's happening for you. In other words, you go to curiosity. It's a principle. It's not so much a tactic. It's a principle. You go to curiosity. I'd like to know, really like to know, what your thoughts and feelings were when you experienced me doing X. Would you be willing to tell me? You don't do the exercise. Let me see if I've got that. Did I get it? Because then they know you're practicing a skill. You just say, really, it's really important to me that I hear you accurately. So would you let me check with you if I'm getting it? Because I might miss something. And then you go to more curiosity. So is there more about that? And then they'll always generalize, because this pain does not really come from you. It was triggered in the moment. Then they say, well, you're just like everybody else, or you're just like Peter or my other boss or whatever. And God, and he was like my father. And so you just mirror that. What you have to do is hold that reality without judging it in any way, shape, or form, or defending yourself that I didn't do that. Everybody decides how they're going to respond to an experience, because that would be adding insult to injury, is that I'm making this up. And that's what somebody will say to you. You're just telling me I made all this up. No, you have to ask them for it, because they are telling you their truth. That's where we get to difference. They're telling you their truth. It's not your truth. And here's the magic of that, is that they've been operating and telling you about it out of what we would call the emotional brain, the lower brain. And when you mirror them back and say, let me check now, am I getting this? They have to go to their prefrontal cortex to check, so that they then come out of the affect into cognition. And after a while, they'll say, well, there's something like, I've had this feeling before, and I just hope that thank you for listening to me, and and it's okay. I don't have the training to go in and say, well, tell me what happened for you. So that the person who is accused has to take ownership of the process, not necessarily of the behavior, because it has a history, but of the process of allowing a person who has been injured by their own memories to feel held. Because when they were little, nobody held them when they were hurt. So when you do that, you're actually, and you don't want to call it therapy, but it is therapeutic, because nobody listened, or somebody did do that, and then nobody listened to their reaction and told them to quit complaining, and shut up and find, what parents do to children, what bosses do sometimes to employees. And I think that's the important thing. If you're going to listen, you have to give up judgment, no matter what you hear. It's their world. And if you judge them, then you've annihilated their world. And now they're doubly hurt, because they got hurt. They told you about it, and you told them it's your fault. Yeah. So nuanced. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I'm so excited for people, for those listening right now, and you're like, wow, this is deep. It is deep, and it's nuanced. And so much of, I know what I have struggled with in my own life in relationship comes down to these basic elements. And that's why I always get so excited, and I'm such an advocate for your work and your mission, and specifically for dialogue, because I've watched in myself, whether it's Josh and I having friction and the temperature gets taken down, or when now I mirror in I call it stealth ways with my parents, or, my friends, or coworkers, or anyone. And it's amazing how it can take what can feel like is a contentious, touchy, delicate, you're walking on eggshells kind of situation, and really support someone in getting out of that kind of crocodile brain, right? And moving into the wise owl brain, your terms. Thank you for that. So let's talk a little bit more about dialogue. I've mentioned it. We've, for those who didn't see our first episode, what are the elements of safe conversation dialogue and how we've talked about how it can transform any relationship, but let's really break down what are those key parts of dialogue.
Well, it's a structured, so we'll just be bald about it. It's a structured process. Meaning, another way to say it, it's a skill. And a skill requires practice. So you have to know, it's just like tennis, you have to know how to hold your arm so that it's counterintuitive. If you hit a ball naturally, it's not going over the net. You have to hit it when your arm doesn't feel right. And do that follow all the way through. So it's like every skill. It calls on your brain to do something it's never done before. So as we began to develop this process, discovering it first between ourselves.
We had our first 2 dates, horrible fights. We ended up yelling at each other both dates. The first date, he took me to a very expensive restaurant. I don't need an expensive restaurant. So at the end, I like Kentucky Fried. He took me really expensive. So I just said, just to let you know, next time I don't want to go to a restaurant like this. Well, he started yelling at me. And then I took him to I got 2 tickets to a play that had just opened. And no one had, and they were doing a play. And surprise, I want you to, let's go to this play together. The play was Equus. And a guy was punching out the eyes
a child
horses.
Was punching out the eyes of horses.
Well, Harville just yelled and yelled at me in the car going home. And he credits me that when we got to my house and he was still yelling at me going inside, and I go, I didn't know what it was about. And so then that I said, hey, stop. One of us talk and the other listen.
Yes.
And that calmed us down.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of dialogue. But it's taking turns speaking and then the other person listening and mirroring back and saying, did I get it right?
Yeah. And that, in fact, was the beginning of our discovery, because I'm a couples therapist and I was doing a couples therapy that was based on problem solving, conflict resolution, mainly using your brain to figure out things. And it wasn't a very successful form of marital therapy, but that was the field. That's all they had. And when Helen sort of yelled at me and said, one of us, actually you said, one of us talk and then the other one talk. In other words, let's do parallel monologues, but not at the same time.
But take turns.
Talking. I realized that did calm me down. And I have a clinical sensitivity. I could have killed her 2 minutes before, and I'm now calm. So what's happened here is that she called us into the prefrontal cortex and calmed down. So I went to my practice of couples the next day, and for the first time, instead of them looking at me and doing what I now call parallel psychotherapy, which was called couples therapy, 2 people in a room makes it couples, but it was really parallel psychotherapy, as if only one person was in the room, because you work with one at a time and then work with the other. I turned them for the first time to face each other and said, now, and I started off sort of like what Helen did. One of you will talk, and then the other one will talk. But then they got into that. They said, but couldn't he tell me back what he's hearing? And so I learned from couples what they needed to have a conversation. So I said, oh, do you want him to reflect back what you're saying? She said, yeah. I had come up with mirroring at that time. It was, okay, George, would you do that? And so he said, well, yeah, I can say back what you said. And so he did that. And then I kept asking her, okay, so that's the mirror. Let me see if I got that. We weren't using sentence stems then, as Helen will talk about sentence stems in a minute, but it was just reflect back. And then she amazingly said, well, I said, what else would you want? And she said, well, I'd like him if he would ask me if I have anything else to say. So that was the beginning of what we now call Is There More, which is the curiosity piece. Well, so he said, yeah. And she said, yeah, I do. He said, okay, I can ask you, got anything else? They were in Texas, so they spoke with Texan, like, got anything else? And she said, yeah. So she gave some more things. And so I said, do you want him to do something else different? Well, he could tell me, is he getting it all? Mm. So she asked for a summary. Now I'm learning this for the first time. Okay, now you got your summary. Is there anything else you want? Well, I'd like to know if he thinks I'm making sense or am I crazy? Well, he had said to her so many times that you don't make sense or that's crazy. They just kind of did this, like, kids tussling and hurting each other. And he said, well, it doesn't make sense. And she said, I want you to know that I'm not asking you to agree with me. Mm-hmm. I'm asking you to see how I'm thinking. So she asked for validation. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, if I don't have to agree with you, I can see how you could come up with that conclusion. Mm-hmm. And then I said, is there anything else? She said, well, I wonder if you know how I'm feeling when I had that experience. So she was asking for empathy. So essentially, that's what a dialogue is. The one thing that we added, it took about 5 or 6 years to actually crystallize that with enough practice for it to be enough for me to see that was going to become and became the therapeutic process. That's the engine of Imago Couples Therapy. Couples learn to dialogue. They don't need anything else because dialogue helps them hear each other, discover each other, become safe for each other. All the things they were complaining about not having, they get it in this new way to talk. So the one thing that we added, which was actually it was a gross oversight, but it's one of the most important things, is always when you want to talk to your partner, ask permission. Make an appointment. And when most of us just walk up and start talking. And so Helen, she's running her movie, and I'm running up and
thinking about
saying,
something else.
I'm just putting my movie on her screen and say, I don't ask her if she'll let me put my movie on. I just start projecting it.
Yes.
Now, so Helen is a wonderful person, and she'd probably say, well, okay. But if she had a bit different personality, she would say, would you get your damn movie off of my screen? I am watching this thing. I am having my own set of thoughts right here. So what we finally discovered was that those are boundary violations. And there's nothing more disruptive than a boundary violation. And that leads all the way from talking without asking permission to war. That's what's going on the planet now, is people cross boundaries. And when you cross a boundary, you have a war. Mm-hmm. And so we have built in the first thing you do, and after you come to one of our workshops, we'll say, always from now on, we're going to task you with, whenever you want to talk with your partner about anything, say, is now a good time.
And if
they say no,
not now,
accept
when?
It.
Say when it
If
is.
not now, say when, and you will make an appointment to talk. And we found is that regulates about 50% of the problem.
It actually does. I mean, I see this all the time because Josh and I both work from home, and we really have to watch ourselves because it's so easy because you love this person and they're right there and you're so comfortable to just launch into whatever. It could be exciting. It could be something fun. It could be an invitation.
Yeah, right.
But I know for me, I can get so myopically focused. Most humans can. And I'm like, whoa. And my instant reaction is frustration, and so then we're off to the races. So
now we have another problem.
So is this a good time? And I think it's also so useful in work relationships. We have technology right now. I think, in our company, we use something called Slack, and I encourage the team to actually turn it off when they're in focus time, because you get these pings and dings when you are in the middle of doing something that's just basically interrupting and not asking permission. Do you know? And it just sends our brains, I think, in a haywire kind of fight or flight state, which, you do that enough times, 20, 30 times a day, you're exhausted at the end. And then, you're with your partner, forget about it. It's, Fight City. So thank you. It's just like, is this a good time to talk?
Is this a good time?
And if not, say when.
Yes. If not, say when.
Yeah.
So some of those key sentence stems, because I think for most of us, because if we haven't done your training, which I'm actually excited to go back to another workshop, you guys can just Google, they do workshops. They're amazingly effective. Please go. Some sentence stems. So, is this a good time? And if they say no, when would be a good time?
That's a sentence stem.
That's a sentence stem. Let me see if I got that for mirroring, right? Did I get all of that? Let me see if I heard that right. Would you?
We like it. Let me see if I got that.
Let me see
if I heard that right. Sort of puts you into a legalistic thing.
I love that.
So did I get that?
Did I get that? Any other sentence stems that we love for the dialogue process?
Well, the big one, is there more about that?
Is there more about that's more? Like the magic sentence stem. Is
the
there
other
more?
person just relaxes when you say that.
And that's probably one of the most, and we didn't start with that. I didn't quite pick that up for a while, how important is there more is.
One day, someone who knows people at the Mayo Clinic said, Helen and Harville, I'd like the dialogue work to go to Mayo Clinic and have people analyze it about what might dialogue do, where people say it feels so good to use it. And suddenly relaxing neurochemicals are released. Left brain hemisphere, right brain hemisphere, and especially between the two is the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And it releases relaxing neurochemicals, dopamine, acetylcholine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. And people who live in this part of the brain that they live, life is a wonder. The Mayo Clinic says a person who lives life from the upper brain sleeps better and wakes up feeling better and lives longer and has a healthier life. So both for your relationships being healthy, your whole body, you are a healthier person if you use dialogue.
Yeah, that the research on it is your brain changes. It's not just a new habit that you can get out of doing, but the structure of your brain changes, so it becomes integrated.
Yeah, they discovered a couple of decades ago neuroplasticity. The more you use a certain part of the brain, the better.
It does get easier too, because I feel like it's been years now since I've had my first experience with dialogue training and with safe conversations. And the more you practice it, like any skill, the more integrated it does become. And it just feels like a lifesaver to me for human beings. So I want to go on to another concept. You're welcome. Called, and this one was a game changer for me as well, zero negativity. What does that mean? And how can we start to practice that in our daily lives, especially when they can be high stress environments?
Okay. Because I say, Harville, in our workshops, let me say this, because when you say, okay, you're going to learn to live life with zero negativity, I'm afraid people will leave the room. And the big thing is learning to convert a frustration into a request.
It's deciding that you will do what Helen said. When you're frustrated, you will ask for what you want and just stop complaining about what you don't have. It's a very simple thing, but it changes the energy, because when you complain, you trigger the brain into its defensive mechanisms. So now you've got two defenses going. But when you ask for something, then the brain goes into its creative mode. Well, what is that? Is it possible? Maybe I could do that. So zero negativity is, we say, and I think we finally got to the point where we're dogmatic, is that if you want a good relationship, you have to give up negativity. But it doesn't mean you have to give up your frustrations. It means you have to say them this way.
Yes.
Embedded in the frustration is a wish. Figure out what the wish is and the behavior that would give you the satisfaction of what you want, and ask for that behavior. And don't go through, you did this to me, you did that to me, and do all the frustrating things, because that negative energy triggers the brain's defenses. So now I'm not sure I want to do anything for you. But if you come and say, hey, oh, you know what I would love next time we're talking is, would you look me straight in the eye and tell me that I am a beautiful woman? And now we can do anything. But when we're not safe, we can do only one thing: protect ourselves.
So I remember one of the other things you've taught me about zero negativity is like, okay, well, how do I identify something that's negative? It's something that your partner or whoever you're in a relationship with considers a put down, something that makes them feel unsafe.
Put down, right.
And I feel like it's so normalized in most relationships about these little snide remarks or an eye roll or a huff or, it might not even be a word, but it might be a posturing or some type of physical reaction that can make the other person feel devalued.
Yes.
And so I love that you also taught about the fact you were like, okay, we're going to do zero negativity. And you got out a calendar and just started to mark it in a very simple way where you either got an X if you couldn't go the full day, right? Without having
one of us felt any negativity going to bed.
Yep. And then you got a nice check mark, right? If you went through the day. And if I remember the story correctly, it was when you started to stack those zero negativity days, you noticed a real shift in the quality of your connection with each other.
Yeah. And decided to finish that story not to get a divorce, because we were on our way to the divorce court when we created that exercise.
Yeah.
And so we would say zero negativity saved our marriage.
Yeah.
Twice.
And what happens when I would put it, I would say Harville had X mark. Guess what I got the next day from Harville? In the afternoon, flowers. He wanted to do something, make sure I didn't feel that way the next day.
Yeah.
So it turns out to be very simple. You generate what you put into the world back to yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of a novice in quantum field theory. And the quantum field theory people who are very serious about reality say that what you put into, we are in a field, and meaning we're all energy, and this energy is in a field, and what you put into that field comes back to you in the field because you're in the field. So it's like if you pollute the water that your swimming pool you're in, you swim in your pollution. So you want a clean swimming pool, don't pollute it because you get what you give.
Yeah.
And that's there's many things that are so simple, easy to state. Whatever you do to others will be done to you is a fact.
Yes.
So
I think that zero negativity for me, what I'm really excited about is extending that beyond romantic relationships. And I think it's so critical and can be such a game changer in teams and in companies. I've run my small business for 23 years and just we're human beings, right? And complaint or this is wrong or this isn't working or so-and-so did this or eye rolling at that. It's just what we humans do if we don't know any better. And I think the notion of having like a zero negativity workplace where that's what you're championing and that's what we're co-creating just feels so exciting from a creative standpoint, from a productivity standpoint, from a human relations, as a boss and as a CEO, I employ lots of people. And we're really excited and we love our work. And one of the most challenging aspects, I think, for most CEOs and most leaders can be people challenges, and people who you adore and you respect and they're so talented. And when there are interpersonal dynamics or politics within a company and it can just take everyone down, drain their energy, take you off track from a productive standpoint or from a mission. So I just think zero negativity. It's like, I'm actually excited to talk to my team about this. We're actually pretty good with this. We're pretty healthy crew, but there's always room for growth. There's always room for further connection and further respect.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our organization is now we have a new CEO, Quantum Connections, and the CEO and some of the other people have developed a Connecting at Work program for businesses or corporations.
Nice.
Because what we were told is CEOs come to their office and another staff person has resigned and they just don't like working. Yeah. The CEO liked that person, but the environment didn't make the coworker relaxed and feel good.
Yes.
And so everything we've said, talking to you the last 40 minutes, is in the Connecting at Work program. There's a PowerPoint slides, and it just teaches what everyone wants is to be seen, heard, and valued.
Yep.
Those three things. And we call it the net connecting score, that people at the end of the day, how well did you feel in your business that day at work?
And the thing that what you're talking about this environment, when it's zero negative, that means it's safe. And you can thrive and evolve only in a safe environment. In an unsafe environment, you can grow, but you grow in your defenses. How do you protect yourself and how do you survive here? So very different use of energy from what can I find and discover and build here. And the research on companies that build safe environments is they have an 86% employee retention rate. And the biggest cost to a company is employee turnover. And companies that don't have a safe environment have an 86% replacement rate. So they are constantly spending money to retrain people.
Which is so
and
costly.
All they have to do is change the quality of their culture.
Yes.
From danger to safety.
Danger.
Then people want to be there and they'll do their best.
Yeah.
But if it's not safe there, they may need to be there, they even want to be there, but they can't do their best because they have to keep watching.
Yeah. Another concept and another skill that you teach in this book and in your work, and it really shifted a paradigm for me, was affirmations. This was a huge moment in the workshop. Let's talk about what role affirmations play in improving our relationships and how we can practice affirming each other, our friends, our coworkers. What does that look like?
Yeah, there's one exercise that we many years ago taught people to do was called appreciation. But that was based, and it's great. You want to do appreciation. So thank you for bringing me a cup of coffee or whatever. So appreciation is, I got something and I appreciate it. And affirmation is a totally different concept. I sort of wish the words were less similar so that it could be clearer. But in an affirmation, you affirm the innate value of another person, partner or employee or whoever, independent of anything they have done for you. What you do, we rise above transactions and utilities into unconditionality, because you are here because the universe put you here. You're not here for me. If you decide to give me a cup of coffee, that's something I can be grateful for and say, I appreciate that. But your being is yours. And my responsibility is to be sure that I honor your being as intrinsically valuable and not functionally valuable. And when couples move into that you don't belong to me and you don't have to do stuff, and I'm going to appreciate you then, into, I'm just going to have to live with the fact that the universe created you, and I need to be respectful of that and affirm your being. You're beautiful. I didn't do anything for that. God, you are intelligent. And we have couples at workshops walk around each other and sort of yell at each other. You are so smart. you are so gracious, your hair is so beautiful, and your smile is so great, and I love your white teeth. And, it has nothing to do with their benefit. It's the fact that that's who that person is. Mm. And we have seen couples move from not quite making it in a workshop to, and this is at the end of the workshop, to actually crossing over when they affirmed each other, an unconditional acceptance of the other as valuable, and independent of anything you do for me.
Harville labels this, and you did it then, the positive flooding exercise.
Yes, the positive flooding
at
exercise.
The end, just one spouse member sits down and the other is going to do something they've never done before, which is walk around the spouse member is just listening, and just, I appreciate this. You do this. You flood them with appreciations.
Yeah.
And
we're all a miracle.
And then they take turns.
Yes.
They switch.
Yeah. It's really moving. And it's that was, I think, one of the things that I love so much about your workshop. Josh and I were commenting because we're going to come back, because I always love refreshers. And it's nice to just step away from the day-to-day, from the laundry, from the mail, from the social, this, that, and the other thing, which are all lovely, and just focus on our relationship and just focus on reconnection and a regrounding in the skills. But I remember I did not expect to cry at the work. Like, I was like, I know we're going to learn some skills and relationships are emotional, but him and I boo-hooed like in the best way.
Oh,
it was the
really?
most, it was gorgeous, because there was such deep levels of seeing and listening and affirming and all of these things that were under the surface of we so love each other.
It's
but
under the surface.
Yes.
We usually at those workshops have 50 to 125 couples in the room. And as you know, Harville has the couples in a U shape, and we're on a little stage with the PowerPoint slides. And long story short, a couple came in at the very beginning and sat very near, and they did not speak in the whole workshop. And I kept wondering, because we have Q&A after the different exercises. I thought, well, they're just happy, and I'm glad they're here. Like you said, you want to come back and just relax. They don't have any problems. Well, at the end, we have couples, anything you want to say before you leave. And different people say how they felt about this man. Raised his hand. First time, took his wife. We said, yes. He went to the middle of the room. He said, I want this auditorium of couples to know this was our last chance. Here are our divorce papers. And he said, I came here with my biggest enemy. I'm leaving with my best friend. Took his wife and went. And of course, everyone just cheered. Oh. Came here with my biggest enemy, leaving with my best friend. That is what the dialogue process could do. We didn't do anything. We just taught them dialogue.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. And this was another concept that I had never heard of before and was introduced through the workshop, was this idea, and you talk about it here, the space between.
So we now see the space between is the way into the self, rather than starting with the self and then coming out here, which you couldn't get anything done much as you start changing this. So now I have this great memory of Helen, or I have a great memory of you. And so then the brain is predictive. Once I get a new wonderful memory, I'm going to anticipate that memory being repeated the next time I see you. But if I get a bad memory, I'm going to anticipate the bad memory is going to be repeated. So you do two things in order to make your life really wonderful. Create absolutely wonderful memories, and then your brain will predict. So if I give Helen a great memory, when I see her next time, she's probably going to hug me or smile at me, or at least she's not going to frown. She might be preoccupied, but it won't be negative. If I give her a bad memory, I walk in, there's going to be a shell around her. So you decide, what kind of world do you want to live in? You create it by your own intentional behaviors. So I decide what kind of memories I want Helen to have of me, and then I give her those memories with my behavior.
I love that. And I love this notion. I have an image in my mind about the space between you know, I like to clean and I like to keep things tidy. And so I love imagining into that space and keeping it really keeping it clean and keeping it open and noticing if it's like, oh, I may have gotten a little messy. What can I do to repair or to freshen that energy up again and get some clear lines of connection there. I love that. Yeah. You know, you guys have been doing your work for decades and have helped and supported and transformed millions of lives. Now I feel like the vision, and this doesn't just happen, but this book feels like a real flag in the sand for the expansion of the vision and the goals for your work.
We figure in 2050, if we have 2.5 billion people practicing dialogue, we will have, and we've labeled that, we will have then the next stage in human civilization. Dialogue didn't exist on the planet until 100 years ago. Up until then, monologue, that is, I talk, you talk, I talk, you talk, was the only way human beings talked. Listening, dialogue, brought in, was Martin Buber came up with the concept, but he didn't have an operational. He didn't say, here's how to do it. He said, here's the concept. And what Helen and I did, actually without referring to him, I didn't really realize when we started to work that we were somehow pulled into that same energy as Martin Buber, but we operationalized it. This is what dialogue looks like. It's a fundamental, structural new way to talk that makes systemic changes rather than symptomatic changes. And that's what excites us and keeps us going in our ripe old age when we'd really rather be sitting on the beach somewhere drinking.
We're elderly. We're getting there. We've been married 40 years, but we're young at heart.
And we have, we have too much to do anything other than what we're doing. And you are a part of that.
Yes,
happily. Because you're getting conduit of the word.
Happily.
Yeah.
Very gratefully. Thank you so much for this beautiful new book. For everyone listening, How to Talk with Anyone About Anything, grab it. You will refer to it again and again and again. And if you're anything like me, you will underline and highlight so much of it. I adore you both. Oh, you are both wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. And for everyone listening and watching, until next time, stay on your game and keep going for your big dreams, because the world really does need that very special gift that only you have. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.